Well, let's feel the pulse of the United States of America in the aftermath of that election that has been described as maybe the closest, the most edgy. I mean, those terms go on and on. And joining us to do just that is Dr. Patience Akpan. She's a professor of political science at Arizona State University in Arizona. She joins us via Zoom this morning. Well, thank you for joining us. I know it's quite late, so thank you for staying up to speak with us. Well, for some people, the election is done and dusted, but for some others, it is not quite settled. So if we could just start from there, what's the atmosphere like, especially trying to bring together people on both divides? How is it going?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Good morning. It's past midnight here, but thank you. Um, the election technically is not yet over because some states are still counting. My state is Arizona, and we're still counting, and the results will not be official until sometime early in December. So technically speaking, we're still in the election season, but we have declared a winner based on the votes that have come in so far and the number of electoral college votes that Mr. Biden has won. So in some ways, the election is over. In other ways, we're still in the election season. But Mr. Biden is not waiting for the official certification of the election results. He has started, working as the news earlier indicated. Tomorrow, Monday, he's going to, or today, Monday, is going to set up a task force on the coronavirus because that was a major issue on which he campaigned. And you guys know a whole lot about what's going on here. Today, the United States hit another record, 100 and something thousand new cases were recorded for today, and we're almost at 10 million in terms of cases. So that is a major issue for him, and he campaigned on that, and it's also gratifying for those of us who supported his candidacy that that's what he's picking up. And so he's going to set up the task force that will start talking and start doing stuff so that when he gets inaugurated on the 28th of January, which is technically when he begins as the president of the United States. And so he will hit the ground running, as it were. So that's how everything would be under normal circumstances, but we are not in normal times in the United States these days. And so on one hand, Mr. Biden is setting up his future. On the other hand, the incumbent president is refusing to do what previous presidents have done to concede and to help with the transition to the new government. And so he is protesting the results of the election and going to court starting tomorrow and starting on Monday and all of that. So we're still in the middle of a whole lot of things, but so going forward, the next couple of weeks will tell us what the future will bring as far as elections are concerned.
Yeah.
Legally, though, Mr. Trump doesn't really have recourse, but Mr. Trump is Mr. Trump, so he'll do what he needs to do.
Well, the very quick one, when you said, you opened by saying that technically the elections are not over because counting is still going on in some parts. And then the latter part, you also said that it's not the normal times in the U.S. So significantly, where you stand, how significant is the number of votes that are not counted yet? How significant is the rest of the process to the results that we already have?
Okay, right now he has hit the 270 electoral votes, and that's what he needed. And so everything else is kind of icing on the cake. Nevada declared, projected him the winner over the weekend, and he got a 6 electoral votes from Nevada, which he didn't really need because he already surpassed the 270. So right now, Arizona, which is my state, we have 11 electoral votes here, and the counting is still going on. Mr. Biden is leading, and but Arizona has not yet projected him as the winner. And Trump is coming to Arizona this week, or sending his surrogates this week to contest the results, which are still being counted. And so then Georgia, because it didn't meet the threshold, a certain threshold, so Georgia will have a recount. Again, it's not expected that the recount will change anything at all, because without Georgia, without Arizona, uh, Mr. Biden still has his 270 and then some. And in North Carolina, Mr. Trump is leading, but even if he gets all the electoral votes in North Carolina, it's not going to change anything. And in Pennsylvania, Mr. Trump is contesting the result, and the argument is that there were some dead people who voted. And but even if those ballots are removed, the result will not be impacted significantly at all. And so it's to all intents and purposes and legally, Mr. Biden is going to be the new president. How we get to January 20th, 2021 is the issue right now. And so we'll see how things unfold.
But then, just as you said, Mr. Trump would do what Mr. Trump does. And one of the things he has decided to do here is go to court. And those issues that he has raised, you cited some of them. So looking at the entire United States of America's democracy, democratic process, electoral process, and all of that, are those issues that the Republican Party is raising, are those issues germane to America's democracy?
I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but lawyers who are expert on elections and government processes. They have spoken and they said there is no, they have no ground, they have no justification. So, and I know I know how a lot of my fellow Nigerians feel about Mr. Trump. So I'm going to be careful about what I say about Mr. Trump on air. But the thing is that Mr. Trump will do what he needs to do because being the kind of person he is, I suppose he can just concede victory so in quote easily, especially after all the stuff he said about Mr. Biden. So I think he has a right to contest the results that he thinks were not in his favor or were rigged or fraudulent. But again, funny enough, he's not contesting the results in any of the states that he won. But the legal experts have spoken, and I've been just reading up and listening to the news in the last couple of days, and nobody says he has any justification for contesting. But everybody agrees, and I also agree that he has a right to contest if he's not happy with the results that he has seen. But I don't think that will change anything. It may just make the next 74, 73 days really, really confusing and chaotic, which is, well, that's how it is. But beyond that, I don't think it will change anything. The system here is so entrenched that even though a lot of the institutions and norms have kind of been shattered in the last 4 years, there are still some structures and some institutions that will and can withstand the confusion of the next 73 days. Again, so it's just like going on a journey. You know where you're going, but how you get there is usually unknown. So we will get to January 20th, 2021. How we get there, we don't know. But Mr. Biden is not bothered by all of that. He's still going ahead and doing what every
That
president-elect
underscores the
does
need
this
to have strong
declaration.
institutions, which has been, a focal point in recent times, especially
Precisely.
here. Now, bringing this home, I mean, if you look at the front pages of the dailies, you see that a lot of them have stories concerning the U.S. election. In fact, one of them has this saying that some people are warning Africa not to expect much from the U.S., even though, the election has swung to the Democrats this time around. But for you, I mean, there are different opinions, but seeing what is playing out, the promises that were made, the campaign promises, which is usually a major point for voters, seeing the campaign promises on both sides, do you think this new administration might change anything for Africa, by extension, Nigeria?
Yes, I think so. Yes, he has made his campaign promises. But whatever comes up in the next 4 years will still be better than what has happened to Nigeria, to Africa in the last 4 years. One of the things that Mr. Biden has promised to do is to loosen the ban, the immigration ban, which Nigeria suddenly um, became part of the list of countries banned from coming out here. So he's going to do something about that. And there's this thing they call here the dreamers. The dreamers are children, people who were brought into this country when they were kids and they were brought here illegally. And so the former administration made it possible for them to stay here, work, and then start the process of becoming citizens. Mr. Trump came and discarded all of that. So one of the things that Mr. Biden has promised to do is to restore certain rights to dreamers. And so they can, again, this is for many of them, this is the only country they know, so they can continue to go to school, work, and then start the process of becoming legal citizens. And so there is that. And I think Mr. Biden, he will, of course, balance all the demands from the different sectors. But this election, his victory, was made possible by a lot of people of color. About 87% of Black women voted for him. And so the he owes a certain demographics. He owes people of color. He owes Black and brown people. He owes immigrants and people like us a whole lot because we have been pivotal to his victory. And then we have the first African American woman, the first African Asian woman as the vice president. And she is the daughter of immigrants, and not just immigrants who came in 2,000 years ago, but recent immigrants. So her mom was Indian, her dad is Jamaican, and her niece is actually married to a Nigerian. So she is in the midst of this. She's not the person we'll go to tell about the stories about how to bring people out here. So we think
Quite interesting.
that this administration will be better
Right.
for Nigerians, better for Africans than the current administration.
That's quite interesting because a recent survey, which was carried out by Pew Research, showed that 3 out of every 5 Nigerian adults actually said that they had confidence in President Trump to do what is right for the world. Now, by the way, the average across the world was about 28%. And Nigeria's is much higher. So regardless of some of these policies, it would seem Nigerians, at least the ones that participated in that survey, had confidence in him. You must have seen that rally too that was done, which the president tweeted. So what do you think is responsible for that?
To some extent, I understand why Nigerians in America will support him. And I have a couple of friends whom I don't talk to these days who support Mr. Trump and voted for Mr. Trump. To some extent, I understand that, and I may not agree with why, but I do understand. What I really, really have difficulties understanding is why Nigerians think Mr. Trump is good for Nigeria. Mr. Trump has called Nigeria certain names, and he has disrespected Nigeria and Nigerians. He has generally been very anti-immigration and anti-immigrant and anti-Black people. So from some of my friends and family members back in Nigeria, what I hear is that Mr. Trump is a Christian. And I say, no, Mr. Trump is not a Christian. Mr. Trump himself does not believe he's a Christian. And I think the biggest scam ever is the belief that Mr. Trump is a Christian. I read something recently that one of my beloved pastors in Nigeria talked kind of something that was recorded of him. And he said something like, people hate Mr. Trump because he's a Christian. That is not so. Those who voted against him are mostly not so much for the policy, but for his character. I don't understand why Mr. Biden, who is a Catholic, goes to Mass every Sunday, every day, or whatever, how often he does. People will vote against him based on faith and then vote for a man who doesn't go to church, who has been married 3 times and twice divorced, and is in his 3rd marriage, 5 children from 3 different women, and he's just a whole lot of things that I don't even have to say here because people know that. I don't know how people look past that because it's about character. It's about
Akpan,
principle.
it's
about
interesting
consistency.
also because there was a Q&A that was carried out with President Trump, and he was asked if he is a Christian, and this is what he says. He says, I now consider myself to be a non-denominational Christian. So I understand that this is an ongoing conversation, but for Nigerians in the US, I mean, talk about trade relations between Nigeria and the US, there's about 1% population of Nigerians in the US. So that's substantial enough compared to other countries. How do we move forward? I mean, you mentioned that there are some people you don't talk to because of their affiliation or political inclination, but there's obviously a need to move forward.
On principle, yes.
On principle, right. So, but there's clearly a need to move forward. And people have been talking about healing that divide. The report we played earlier mentioned that. So, in a few seconds, how do you think we can move forward with all this polarization and all that?
Well, it's going to take time because, again, it's one thing as a political scientist, I allow people the right to believe in what they want to believe in, vote for whomever. But this election was not just about the policies or the fact that Mr. Trump reduced how much oil was being imported from Nigeria, which also had other consequences for the Nigerian economy. It wasn't so much about the policies, it was about character. It was about me telling my young children about how to behave in public. And then we turn on the TV and then we see the person who is the president. So it's going to take a while, but we'll get there as a country, as people, and we will follow the leadership of Mr. Biden, who said it's time to heal. We have to come together. But I think it's going to take time because, again, it's about character. It's for me, it's like if you think this is a good man, then I have to question your own values. But we'll get there. I mean, a lot of us don't have anywhere else to go. I can always come back to Nigeria, but not everybody else has another place to go to. But so we are all here, and we will make it happen. The healing will happen. We just need to get through the next 73 days.
Whew. Well, we wish you the very best in that. But we'd like to thank you again for staying up to speak with us. We've been talking to Dr. Prof.Akpan, a professor of political science at Arizona State University in Arizona. Thank you so much for your thoughts.
Thank you, sir, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
And you too.
Well, interestingly, your comments are next, and we'll close with them. This one, the first one, is from Odium Crown, and clearly talking about the first topic we handled today, which was about the ASU FG imbroglio. Says, FG should just try a little bit more. They are both trying.
Well, you know, the FG is offering 20 billion. ASU is asking for 110 billion. I don't think that's a little bit more. You have to bridge that 90 billion. So, well,
90 billion try.
Oh, absolutely. So maybe try a 90 billion more.
The problem for me is not whether or not they do these little things. The problem is the longevity, the sustainability of whatever it is that we do. You know, we should try more to establish systems that will make sure that the cycle never stops. We talked about 2 issues today. Anyway, let's go on.
Well, take a look at this one from UNISA saying state universities have resumed. Private universities have started a new session, and ASU said they are on strike in the interest of students and parents. He's asking, which interest?
Good question there. Hambolu Olayemi says, I agree with the ASU president. If the government is serious and sincere, there are several ways to raise the funds ASU is asking for. For instance, they can put the 29 billion naira budgeted for National Assembly renovations into universities' infrastructural development, but to them, it's more important at the National Assembly.
Okay, we'll just let the National Assembly respond to that. But you see, Olaiwola Droplet says, it's pathetic how our public universities always embark on strike. The FG and ASU should find a lasting solution to ensure an end to ASU's subsequent strike. Imagine, he's already predicting future strikes.
I referenced the same thing. Our timeline today talked about, this Fourth Republic, but 2-3 governments before that, ASU had been going on strike incessantly. So, if, as we will say on this program, you know what someone will do by what he has done before. Lanre Salako says, I believe the IP's team is really the problem for Pengasan and ASU. If the IP's team is competent, configuring the software to accommodate the options for various professionals should not be a problem. I believe they should invite experts to upgrade the application.
Oh, Area Warren has an interesting take on this whole how to get money to fund universities and solve this imbroglio. He says there's enough fund in the National Assembly to fund education. What is the priority of the National Assembly in national development? Let the National Assembly members work part-time, or better still, slash their total package by 80%, and we have money to fund education.
There are two laws we have to adjust for that. Okay. First of all, we have to adjust the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and then we have to adjust the RMAFC Act to ensure that they can, slash their pay by, what's it called?
Oh, so it's doable, is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what the law says. If it's going to be considered at all, those two laws have to be amended. But before you can adjust the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 36 state assemblies are involved.
And you have National Assembly.
And you have to go through the National Assembly to talk to the state houses of assembly in 36 states.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, that's the show today. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day, and please remain safe. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And I'm Kaido Kikilu. Thank you for joining us.